Right, well, good morning everybody. Welcome to this annual general meeting of the North York Moors National Park Authority. It's my pleasure to welcome you all today and to inform members of the public that we're live streaming this meeting and are recording as well. Moving on to item 2, emergency evacuation procedure. I think everybody here is broadly familiar with it. I'm not expecting a fire alarm today unless Judith tells me different. But if there is one, then we're out of the door on the right-hand side where it's marked fire exit and gather at the garden, the front of the building. So that's the assembly point if there is a fire alarm today. Item 3 is election of chair to take office until the next annual general meeting of the authority. So I would like to invite nominations for chair of the authority for the next year. John.
Nominate Jim Bailey.
Thank you, John. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Clive. So Jim Bailey nominated by John Ritchie and seconded by Clive Pearson. Do I have any other nominations for chair this morning? I don't see any other hands or nominations. In that case, can I just seek a confirmation that you're all happy for Jim to be elected as chair of the authority? I declare Jim Bailey is duly elected chair of the authority, and I'll stand down from my temporary responsibilities and hand over to Jim.
Sounds good. Yes. Thank you very much, members. Thank you, Tom. It's still an honour, and I'll do my best to serve you and the authority for another year, as have been doing. So, business as usual. If you just bear with me for a second. Well, it's great to have pens provided as well. So, next on the agenda is the election of the deputy chair to take office for the coming year. Do I have some nominations?
So is that something?
David? Is there a second there? Patrick James.
Is that Sophie?
So Malcolm Bowes is proposed by David Jettle, seconded by Patrick James. Are there any other nominations? No? Okay, could we just have a show of hands, please, to endorse that? Thank you. I see Malcolm's not. Oh, yes, he is. That's good to know you're interested, Malcolm. Thank you. So I think that's unanimous. Welcome, Malcolm. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much, and I'll continue to help support Jim in all the things that we do. So thanks for your support.
Just got a little bit.
Well, we'll keep going until somebody tells us different. So, we've done apologies. Haven't we done apologies? No. Oh, sorry. Okay. I usually start with apologies. So, apologies for absence.
We've got apologies from Joy Andrews, David Hugill and Michelle Donoghue Moncrief.
Any more apologies that we know of? No? Okay, thank you. The public minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of March, which are on page 1. Are you happy to take those as a true record of the meeting? I'd see that moved by Malcolm and second that from the chair. So I see no dissent from that, so thank you. Then public questions. Do we have any public questions, Tom?
I'm not aware of any.
No? Okay. 8, it's the reminder to declare your personal or prejudicial interest, should you have one. Best done immediately before consideration of the item, but I see George is there now.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It is a declaration that I don't have to make. However, I made it last meeting, and I was glad I did, given how the conversation developed during the meeting. So I would like to do the same thing again and declare that I am the North Yorkshire Council representative for Helmsley.
Is there a particular item that that's related to?
Yes, it is the property item.
Okay, so, great. No more? Okay, so that brings us on to membership of committees, forums and outside bodies. So the papers on the agenda did come out before most, well, half of you had been sort of accommodated into that. And so hopefully everybody got an email last Friday from Judith, which has populated our committees and forums with almost exactly the same as last year, a couple of little changes. And it isn't within my gift to hold you to that, but if members wanted to accept that as a good way of allocating ourselves evenly and appropriately, then we could accept that en bloc. If we didn't, we'd have to go through the secret ballot and the process. So I'm in your hands there, but I'll put that there so that you can have the chance to accept it, John.
Like you, Chair, there wasn't any. I couldn't see any change in any of the committees. I thought the committees worked well last year, and I proposed that we move them en bloc.
Okay.
Or second your proposal.
Yeah. Is there a seconder for that?
Yeah, I support it.
Good. Okay. So just for completeness, the little tweaks, because when we did this a year ago, Janet and Jane and also David Hugill weren't here, so I have had a word with a couple of people just to make sure that they were still happy with that. I think the only tweaks are that Michelle has come off committees and forums and seems to be busy with whatever she's busy with. Joy Andrews comes into Recreation and Wellbeing to take Michelle's place, and Jane Harper and Bob. Jane has taken a stint for Bob on FESC. I think those are the only changes. So outside bodies will come next. Okay, so Malcolm.
Everybody's seen this and everybody's happy about it. Nobody's actually wanting to change it.
Well, I just asked them, and they said no. If they're not here, then that's their lookout. But yeah, and the one or two people who are not here, I said that the people who have changed, I've had a word with them. It's not really my gift, but it certainly makes things work easily, and it's nice to divide our time and expertise as evenly as we can. So if you could just remind me on the recommendation, Tom, do we take that before outside bodies? Or?
Yes.
Okay. So are you all happy then to accept that proposal that's in the papers? Thank you. I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much, members. That makes a big difference to making our lives easier and efficient. So then we come on to outside bodies, and there were.
Could I just ask you?
Yes.
Just on the on members of committees and forums, is it possible for all members to be able to join on teams for the forums, so that everybody has a chance to know what is going on the forums rather than and reading an update at NPA. I know it's something maybe not everybody wants, but at least if they have a chance to join, it would help everybody, I think.
Sure. We talked about the thing about the forums is we do want the forums to specialise on their subjects, and so the forum members are the forum members. But if a member wants to attend a forum virtually or otherwise, they can do so by invitation of the chairman. So if a member has a particular wish to attend the forum, get in touch with the forum chair, and you can be invited.
I know it's more a case of, if you aren't on the actual committee, you can join, but you aren't eligible to vote or participate, but at least you can hear what's going on that forum, or as it's going about its business. Is that correct?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, just coming here from obviously members are free to decide that their own rules or standing orders in relation to committees and forums. We're talking specifically about forums here. Through the governance review that members approved a couple of years ago, we agreed that going forward, invitations of members of the authority who weren't appointed to forums would be by the invitation of the chair of that forum. So that's the position as it stands at the moment. Obviously, the chairs of the forums are invited to give a report to this meeting as a summary of the items that were discussed at the forum meeting.
So Tom, I can't remember. Are our forums on Teams?
They're usually conducted in hybrid format. Yes. Yeah, unless there's a particular reason why there might be for example, if there were a site visit, just be impossible to hold it. So, yeah.
Right.
So is it possible that we just give Judith a ring, or do we actually have to?
Again, I'm relaying my understanding based on the recommendations that were put previously to members around the governance review. But attendance is by invitation of the invitation. If the chair makes it open to all the members of the authority to attend as observers, then they're free to do that. But it's at the discretion of the chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I do sometimes actually attend meetings of committees that I'm not member of, and so I thought I would share my experience, given it might be helpful to the point that was raised, which is that I do tend to invite myself to some other committees, and the chair of none of the chairs had rejected my invitation to myself to attend. So I don't think there is a problem there. The chairs have been flexible, and I've been able to attend meetings of any committee or forum that I asked for. So I don't think there is a concern there. If I remember correctly, I think each member is entitled once a year to attend a committee and vote and speak on it. But I think that's one of the clarifications that was given to us when we joined the North York Moors National Park Authority a year ago. I think there is a rule that you can attend one meeting, but the reality is all chairs are very welcoming, and you are always able to attend those meetings and observe, and with the permission of the chair you can speak as well.
Okay, Joe, thanks for adding that. As I say, I really can't see a reason why members wouldn't. But I think the purpose that what I was stressing is that, if you are one of the members who is allocated to a forum, it's really important that you focus your attention and effort on doing that job. And sometimes, if you see everything to go to, make sure that you do your job on the forum or committee that you're allocated to first. And so formally, that's the process. My experience is that most other authorities have similar arrangements for their committees. Certainly on the ones that I've served on. So, yeah. Okay, are we happy with that, Colin? Okay, we'll move on then. So, outside bodies. Gosh. Got bamboozled and I lost. Okay. So on to outside bodies. The members that were asked for that interest have come forward, and that's what we have. I don't think all of those people are here now, so it's up to you whether you want to take a vote on the people that have expressed an interest, or that they would need to be proposed and seconded, or whether you wish to do something different. So we'll go down them one by one, and then when we've got a nominee decided, we can accept them on block at the end. So the first people, they had Christine Robertson, that is currently the CNP representative that we put in last year. David Jeffels has expressed an interest in doing that, and David did it before. So I'm in your hands, members.
Chairman, could I just say, isn't it wonderful that we've got interest, more interest than we have spaces available? That's a great place to be. And is it possible, if the person can't get, if there's only one place and the person can't get, that the other person who isn't voted could be going to? Is that possible to have a substitute to go to meetings? Since we're lucky enough to have two, and then we could have the person that we vote for and second the person that would like to substitute, or is that? Or am I being insensitive? And if I'm being insensitive, apologies.
No, that's a matter for CNP, to be honest. It is a matter for the body that you are appointing to. You would need to ask them, I think.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Whether they wish to have a substitute. So, John.
To be clear, Chairman, whilst I'm happy for a show of hands on this, would it be better if we had a ballot on this, so we're not in the position of causing embarrassment to.
Absolutely. Or we don't do shows of hands. I think our standing orders are that all nominations and votes are taken by secret ballot. That's how we go. So, and to move things on, as I say, we should take a ballot, George.
I was just going to second it formally, so that it's all above board. That we proceed to a private ballot.
Okay. So, Richard, are you happy that we can accept that both of those people are proposed, or do you need a proposer and seconder?
I think we can accept their proposal, yes.
Okay. Over to Tom then.
Thanks very much for that, members. I can confirm after the ballot that David Jeffels has been duly appointed to represent the National Park Authority on the CMP. I don't think it's the CMP board, but the CMP group. Congratulations, David. And we'll move with that to nominations to the Local Access Forum.
Yeah, so I was just checking because I know. I'll come to you, Bob. I'll come to you now, Bob. Are you sure? Okay, so Bob's asked that he be withdrawn from that. I was just making sure with Judith that you had received David's interest in that.
Yes, I have.
In person. Great. So yeah, we do know that I know he had mentioned to me about it, but it was only a mention. So if he's actually emailed in, are we happy to accept David as our nominee for the Local Access Forum? Thanks very much to Bob for moving that forward. Okay. So local government York and North Yorkshire is, I think it is. It should be the chair of planning and the deputy chair of planning. I don't know whether that's in our standing orders, but that's kind of
The housing board.
Yeah, the housing board. I think that was the intent, and that's why those people are there. What does it say, Richard? Is it individuals or is it chair?
Chair, I don't think it refers anywhere in standing orders to representation on that body, not in present standing orders.
Okay. Okay. Well, for the purpose of moving on, I'm happy to move from the chair that Clive and John are the reps and the sub as put, unless there's anybody else.
Yeah, that's fine.
George will second that. Okay. No dissent from that?
No.
Okay. So RAF Fylingdale's liaison group, it is, as you see, the chair, deputy chair, chair of planning, and 2 members, which are currently Joy Andrews and Colin Williamson. So it's just the 2 members that we need to nominate and appoint there. Are we happy to accept those to continue? Are you proposing?
Just going forward with proposals.
Okay, George, I'll second Sue. No dissent from that?
No.
Good. So then it moves to accept our nominations for outside bodies as determined for the coming year. Are we happy to do that?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. Okay. Happy, Richard?
Yes, thank you very much.
So my microphone seems to be a bit echoey.
It is very.
So microphone's off here, so I don't know why.
No, it's not usually because I shout, but it could be. So, we're on to the property review at item 10, which is to seek approval to apply for planning permission. So, Ian will take us through that. Do you just want to explain the relationship between item 10, Ian, and the private report, just for clarity?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I'll just get myself sorted out. Yes, we've split the discussion around property in half. The private piece of this is around our internal financing. At the moment, that is all still commercially confidential. And also, we're just at the stage where our financing of the proposed new build is very much at an indicative and an early stage, and we've a lot more work to do on that yet. So we feel it's appropriate, and having taken advice from Richard, Most of that is commercially confidential, and hence that's why that's in the private part of the agenda. This first paper is all around asking you for your consent for us to apply for planning permission. And this paper is pulling together the threads of the work that we've done over the last 3 years since we commenced on our property review. And we felt it's entirely appropriate for our thinking, the work that we've done so far to be in the public domain. So that's why we split the two in half. So I'll take us through this first paper, which, as the title suggests, that's asking for your approval for us to go ahead and seek planning permission. If I switch, that's better. I'll switch this on. Now, a number of you have been involved in the property working group, and so to a certain extent, you've lived and breathed some of this stuff over the last couple of years. But a good number of you are new to this or haven't been involved, so I thought it, again, entirely appropriate for me to put a fairly detailed paper together so that you've got a lot of the background information about what our thinking's been, where we've started, and how we've got to this point. So we agreed a number of outcomes for the property review back in 2021, and this included the provision of 21st century offices and ranger depots that were fit for purpose with a decent security of tenure. Members have been involved throughout that time via the property review working group, which isn't a decision-making body, but it provides help and advice and reports back to National Park Authority. And we've brought regular papers to you, and you've made key decisions as we've gone along the way. Now, we considered a wide variety of options for how we might deal with Helmsley Depot and Helmsley offices, and they're listed in para 2.3 of the report. But we concluded that staying in Helmsley in a building owned by the NPA was our preferred option, and that a new build was most likely to meet our needs and be the most cost-effective way of doing so. Now, a number of decisions have already been taken. The sale of number 13 Bondgate, which we generally call Beaconsfield, you agreed to the sale of that because we had an overcapacity of office space, and that sale completed in September 2023. You also agreed to the purchase of a plot of employment land in the southern part of Helmsley on Rickle Drive, and that purchase, by coincidence, also completed in September 2023. We've also agreed that we should seek to develop purpose-built accommodation, and that the ranger depot that we have at Sawmill Lane is beyond any sensible economic repair and needs replacing. So there are a number of operational necessities to consider. As you'll be aware, the condition of the old vicarage and Sawmill Lane is causing us as officers very considerable concern. And at one of the early property review group meetings, we took the group of members who were involved in the group at the time around this building and Sawmill Lane and just pointed out all the works that needed doing. And it's worth remembering that we haven't made any significant investments in our Helmsley-based property since the early 2000s at Sawmill Lane, when we refurbished the office there, and in the late 1990s at the old vicarage, where this committee room was created and the studio room across the way was created. So that on this site, it's best part of 25 years since we made any significant property investment. In 2021, just to try and get under the skin of what works were needed, we engaged Aligned Property Partners and Heritage House Surveys to look at this site, and Aligned Property Partners looked at Sawmill Lane. And the outcome from that is detailed in para 3.1 of the report. And it's worth noting that the essential works at the old vicarage, which we reference in the financial paper later on, are just that, the essential works to repair the fabric of the building. They don't in any way change the office environment from what it is now. Thankfully, they would repair the roof, which will be leaking as we speak without rain coming down. The essential works don't make any significant improvements to the accessibility of this building. They don't provide extra provision for car parking, so we would continue to park on the residential streets around here. They don't reduce ongoing maintenance costs, nor do they address the overcapacity of office space that we have here, and nor will they properly address our carbon reduction aims. Now, a number of these points I've expanded on, and you can read those for yourselves in paras 3.2, 3.3 and 3.4. At the moment, we operate suboptimally across this site and the Sawmill Lane site. Vehicles, equipment and tools are spread across both sites, resulting in inefficient use and in some cases overcapacity of equipment. We have rangers, apprentices and volunteers at separate sites, and particularly volunteers and rangers, they're operating in a way that's detached from people that are here. And this works against rather than promotes the matrix style of working that we now need to deliver our work, which is, as you know, is largely project based. We've done a significant amount of work in terms of engagement with residents and with staff. And while there is no requirement for us to do any external engagement prior to seeking planning permission, we felt that it was far better to be open and clear about what we were planning. Tom has written twice in January and March to 100 residences in Rickle Drive and the roads nearest to our site. Chris France and I went to the Helmsley Town Council meeting in February to explain why we wanted to move, and there were around 25 local residents at that meeting. In May, we held a full engagement day, and for the first time, the public were able to view the external appearance and the site proposed site layout. 60 residents attended, and the feedback was mostly positive or neutral, with lots of helpful suggestions about landscaping and minor design improvements. There were, however, a small number of residents who were vehemently opposed to any development on the site. Following that feedback, we've moved the proposed access to our visitor car park, which I'll show you in a minute or two, away from Rickle Drive, and access to that will now be via the site's service road. The most commonly mentioned concern we've had from residents is about traffic. I think it's important for us to remember that while there will certainly be additional traffic movements in Rickle Drive, that there is no doubt, there will be no additional vehicle movements in Helmsley as a result of our development. Parking will be in dedicated car parks rather than on street, and as part of the planning application process, we do need to provide a detailed travel plan for submission with our plans. We haven't forgotten about staff engagement through this process. We did some work back in 2021 when we set off on this journey to ask staff what would make a great workplace for them. And as we've moved steadily through the last couple of years, we've kept staff up to date via the hub, briefings at staff meetings, team meetings, and so on. We had 3 formal engagement sessions at the end of April, which they were really positive and well received by staff, lots of good and helpful suggestions. And we've set up a small working group across all of our work disciplines to finalise how the internal arrangements of the building should work, and how the various things we want to do on the site should interact properly with each other. So that group will meet again as we move through the summer. So our new build designs, we're working with a company called Bowman Riley, who got the contract to work with us following a competitive process. And those of you who attend planning committee will have seen examples of some of their work previously. I was really keen that we looked at passive house principles for the design of the building to help keep our energy use as low as possible, and to reduce the need for as many electrical ventilation systems as possible. And there's certainly a balance here around capital costs of the new build and ongoing running costs. And we're mindful, and we'll talk about this in the private part of the agenda, we're mindful of the balance between the two. The cheapest option may not be the cheapest option over the long term when you start to factor in running costs. So passive house principles and adopting those are an important part of what we're trying to do. Creating a great workplace where people want to come to work is really important to us. As we'll all be aware, 2020 and 2021, COVID, and us all working from home has changed the way in which those of us who are office-based work, and I can't see any change to that. So moving forwards, the weird balance of home working and office working. The stuff that we can do at home, which requires focus and concentration, and we can still deal with the technology works very efficiently, so we can still deal with the public from home. But there's a whole set of things that we need to do to work well in an office environment where we need to collaborate with each other. And this building doesn't allow us to do that as well as we would want to. We have had some pre-application advice from North Yorkshire, and that's in para 5.2 of your report. And the designs that I'll show you in a minute or two, Chris has sent on to North Yorkshire, and we've received some emailed feedback from them that's been positive about what we've put forward. It's worth remembering the land that we've bought in Helmsley is designated in the Helmsley plan as employment land. We clearly need to think what we're going to do with the old vicarage and Sawmill Lane, and we have a planning application coming to you in July with a plan to turn the old vicarage back to its former residential use. And the intention would then be to sell the old vicarage in due course, and that will help fund our new build. Likewise at Sawmill Lane, we don't own all of that site. We only own the site that our depot sits on. The yard that is essential to our day-to-day operation we've held during all the time I've been here on a series of short-term leases. We've got about 4 years left on that lease, so my intention would be that we would sell the depot and we would just retain the lease on the yard until that expires in around about 4 years' time. Right at the very end of last week, we got some advice about the biodiversity net gain requirements for the site, and having seen the detail on that, I'm completely relaxed about what's required of us. Now, the final 4 slides I've got show you what we're intending to submit for planning consent. Now, those of you that have been part of the working group will have seen this already, but we're obviously asking for a decision from the whole of the authority here, so I thought it's very important that you all saw this. So this is the design that we have, a mixture of natural materials. We're really keen that the front-facing and side-facing parts of the building were well designed, made of good materials, because obviously other people can see those, rear of the building, which backs out onto English Heritage's current sites, is more utilitarian in nature. That probably gives you a better view of the site. And I mentioned a little bit earlier, on our original plan, we had an access into this visitor parking area from here. We got very strong feedback from local residents that they didn't like that, and it created extra vehicle movements here, and we've moved that around. We would obviously do a significant amount of landscaping around this site, both in terms of screening, and also we'd want to work somewhere where that isn't covered in tarmac and concrete. And so we'd see a lot of good landscaping and planting. And all these car parking areas, again, we'd see those as being permeable or semi-permeable to help with drainage. I think these are helpful, I think, and particularly this top one, because that gives you an idea of scale compared to some of the nearby buildings. So I'm absolutely confident that this isn't going to look big or overly big in its setting. These top windows, they're purely for ventilation. All of our office accommodation is at this first floor, and these windows sit just along there, and they will help with the natural ventilation, which will be an integral part of the design, so that we don't have to have lots of electrical systems inside. Now the east and west facing roofs will be, the intention is that they'll be covered in solar panels, and we intend to generate as much of the power that we need on site as we can through that method. And certainly the initial calculations done as part of getting us this far suggests that we should be able to generate most of the power, if not all of the power, that we need to be able to operate that building in terms of heating, lighting, IT, and so on. Elsewhere on the site, we'll be installing electric vehicle charging points. It is most unlikely that we'll generate enough electricity from what we can put on the roof to be able to charge our vehicles, so we'll need to buy that in from the grid, but it would be the same if we stayed here. As you can see, we've pulled a portion of the building out, not across the full width of the back, but this will be the garage area where we store trailers, that sort of equipment, and there's small ranges workshop and so on. And so Chris, I think these are the designs that we'll be sending through to North Yorkshire planners, and they've already had sight of these, and their initial feedback has been very positive around these. So I'm conscious I've spoken for quite a while, Chair, but there is quite a lot to go through, as I'm sure you can appreciate. I'll pause there and very happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ian. Janet.
Thanks, Chairman, and thanks, Ian. It's clearly a lot of work's gone on. Could I, just for clarity for people who are in the public and also maybe anyone listening, could I just be clear that what we're talking about in terms of Sawmill Lane and this building is in preparedness, just in case there is a planning consent? We're not anticipating, so just to make that point clear. And could I also be clear who the planning authority is for this building and for Sawmill Lane? Because I can see that North Yorkshire County are the planning authority for this. So could we just clear that up, please? And I have one other comment, if I may, Ian, and that's I absolutely understand the reasons for commercial sensitivity, absolutely get it. But there's also a fine balance between the public interest of public money and the commercial sensitivity. And I just want to be sure that we're always keeping in check that balance between the public's right to know, the public's interest, and our commercial sensitivity. And I completely understand that we do not want to give our sort of idea about what we've got available to spend. So funnily enough, the costs, I completely get it, but we need to be really vigilant to make sure that we're just making sure that what we can share, we do. So sorry, there's quite a lot there, but thank you.
I'll try and answer those in the reverse order. Yeah, I completely understand that we're spending public money. The paper that we're presenting to you later are very much indicative and early costs. They are nowhere near the final answer. And so I think it would be entirely inappropriate for us to declare our hand about what we think it might cost, with lots of work to do across the summer. So we'll come back to that. I'm really sorry, I didn't understand the first bit of your question. And I'll come back to who the planning authority is for any planning application for this site.
So my question is, we're not assuming we've got planning permission, are we, by undertaking the work we're doing to prepare? So what I was saying is, can we be clear that all we're doing is working in preparation, just in case we're not assuming that we've got consent? So it's not a question, it's a statement.
We haven't got planning consent for
no,
this.
But by doing the work here in Sawmill Lane, we're not. I just want the public to understand that it's in preparedness for a decision. It's not because we've assumed that we're going to get permission. Because I think it's important to make that.
And also getting planning consent for the site doesn't commit us to a particular course of action. I feel very strongly that having acquired the site, we should get planning consent because that consolidates our investment. It doesn't commit us to a course of action. We'll come back to you rightly and properly as we develop our financial plans, and it will be members in due course that have the final yes or no go ahead based on what we're content with as a finalised plan. None of what we're agreeing today commits us to a particular course of action, but I do believe getting planning consent is important for the authority's financial interests.
And the planning authority for here?
Chris or Richard?
Yes, thanks, Janet. For reasons we don't really understand, our predecessors split Helmsley in half, so the northwest side of Helmsley is in the national park and the southeast isn't. So the old vicarage is located in the National Park Authority's area, so we're the local planning authority for this building, and Rickle Drive is North Yorkshire Council, used to be Rydale, as you know. As is Sawmill Lane, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll go to Arnold.
Thank you. Ian, I am convinced that this site does not comply with EDI regulations. And I may have missed it in your report, but to me that's an important reason to look at alternative premises. The other thing I'm interested in is the EV charging points on site. Having gone to a conference recently to do with electrical charging, there are systems in place where you can put up a covered car park, which generates enough electricity to generate, depending on how many cars or vehicles you're charging. So I just wondered whether we'd looked at that. I'm a bit along with Janet on this thing about transparency, and you said it's the cost is not indicative, and that is the reason why we're not being open. But does that suggest that when the cost is not indicative, will we be more transparent? And also, a final question, which may be not answered: does Rickle depend upon selling this?
Okay, I'll try and take those in order this time rather than confusing myself. Certainly in terms of newer technologies and being able to charge EVs, we've got a really open mind around looking at the technology. As part of this build, we're looking at the costs of battery storage so that when we are generating quickly, particularly during the summer months, how we can store the electricity we generate to then reuse. And there are some possibilities around using some of the electricity we generate for EV charging. But we'll come back to that. I think with all of the newer technologies, there's just a balance that we'll look at in detail about how much does it cost to invest, what do we think the payback's going to be. So, yeah, of course.
Because the reason it's relevant to me is because it would have to be part of the planning application. If you had a car park with a canopy in it showing solar panels as well, it'd have to be in now rather than an add-on maybe. So that's just, and the first question I did ask Ian.
It's a constant source of embarrassment to me that we ask people with mobility issues to come to a back door and ring a doorbell. We can't accommodate any members of staff who have significant disabilities easily. We've done what we can with this building, but it's not great at all, and I would certainly agree with that. The costs we're bringing to you later, they are indicative, but as I'm sure you can appreciate with any big project, as we've got 100 plus lines of costs, which we received last week or the week before, we're going through those very carefully to properly understand what the costs are, what we need, what we don't need, and that process is going to take time. So it isn't we've got a cost now, we know what it is. There is lots for us to think through and sort out. And what we're sharing with you in the private part of the agenda is our thinking so far, and that will develop and change. And we'll almost certainly bring another private paper to you in September to keep you up to date on where we've got to. And as I said earlier, before we go ahead, we'll come back to you again to say this is what we think the final financial position is. Are you content for us to proceed? So what we're talking about a little bit later is very much at just work in progress.
The final question was, does Ripple depend on selling it?
This is certainly part of the financial equation, and moving the value of one asset into another.
Thank
you. I'll move on to Heather, and then I've got David Jeffries.
Yes, as one of the members who was here from the start with this, who taken some convincing about the need to leave here, move premises and the reasons why. We've been within every step of the way, and like some of the members, part of the property group, in which we've done an awful lot of due diligence looking at this. And obviously, as new members, you've come in sort of middle towards the end. So I want to assure you that, I think you've handled it pretty well, Ian, and you took the advice you needed, which was one of my concerns, that we aren't the experts on this, and I think we've got the right people in place, and a lot of time has been spent by yourselves. I just want to say I think you've done the right thing by your consultation with the staff, which is the people who work within the building, and the change we need. It's got to be the right change for the right reasons, and obviously also for the local residents, which obviously it's that plot of land has been left for some time. I don't know how long it's been like that, and children play in the streets, and it's very quiet, and so I can understand a lot of the reasons that people don't want it. But having said that, I mean, it's a good-looking building. We've been in a long day out. I felt like I'd gone on my holiday, looking at all other buildings and all sorts of things, and it was quite a long day. But it was, to see. We want to make sure we get it right. I'm quite sure that you've carried out a lot of work. I say we haven't got that far yet. But just going back to the concerns about the residents, I mean, it is what the land's there for. But I just thought, well, obviously to do with the traffic and the speeding and whatever, when it comes down to it, highways obviously put this. And I would suggest that in some ways, if you look at this building, I'm right in saying we generally work 5 days a week, maybe we do work Saturdays, but I would suggest that the traffic's going to be at the same time of day, and possibly weekends will be pretty quiet down there. So that might be from a good point of view if you had a load of houses there where you got traffic coming and going all the time, which can be more dangerous for when you've got children playing. So that might be a benefit from one side of looking at it. Now, I think, Ian, I just want to make the point to the usually members here that, all the way through it, that, you're every step of the way, and I'm more confident than I was when we set off with it. So thanks, Ian. Thank you. Just a comment, really. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. David?
Can you tell us whether any significant debate has taken place on making the proposed new headquarters into a community hub, for want of a better phrase? What I'm looking at is, could it become a Rydale centre for community use in terms of housing government departments for serving the Rydale area, and such organisations as North Yorkshire Council and Citizens Advice Bureau, right, to make the whole thing financially sustainable? I'm being a bit naive.
Thanks, David. Yeah, we've talked to a number of organisations around would they be interested in sharing office space. The resounding answer is yes, they're all keen to share office space, but under no circumstances do they want to put their hands in the pockets and contribute anything to the cost, unfortunately. We would certainly see that if our current partners here, Helmsley Town Council and Howardian Hills National Landscape, if they would like to come and work with us at the new site, we'd be delighted to have them. And we've had preliminary discussions with the representatives of both those organisations. But I think in terms of wider scope for other organisations to use us, other than on the most occasional of bases, I don't see from the discussions that we've had that there are any serious options there.
Thanks, Ian. John Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to you, Ian, and the whole team that have worked so diligently over the past, God knows how many years now, but a long time in bringing the proposals to this point. And I'm certainly more than happy to propose that we accept the officer recommendation and move forward with the planning preparation on here for all the reasons that you've outlined in the report. I just think this is not, I think it's ambitious without being overly ambitious. This is going to provide a workspace that people who work for the National Park Authority are going to be proud of and will want to work in it. I think we need to move for a whole plethora of reasons. We need to move forward with this recommendation.
Thank you, John. Sorry, Malcolm. Is there a seconder for that? So just so it's on the table, I'll take Janet. Is that what you were going to do?
That's why I put my hand up, Jim. Yeah. Okay. What I was going to say as well, a couple of things really. One, thanks to that report, it was really thorough. It went through for the new members. I think it gave you a really good flavour of the significant discussion that those of us who were here from the beginning have had. It wasn't an easy decision that we took to go ahead on this track, as it were, and things have moved on significantly. So thanks for doing all of that. And yeah, I'm quite happy to second the proposal. It's just the natural next step to apply for the planning permission to get it under our belt, and then, as you say, as things move on, we'll take final decisions then. And I mean, just talking to the staff, I'm aware that there's still some significant discussions going on about how we use the internal space. You know, bringing the Sawmill Lane staff and the staff here together is clearly a really good thing for all sorts of reasons that you outlined. But it has its own challenges, and I know I was in the workshop when with the staff when they were talking about the detailed plans, and we sat around rooms and around tables, looking at all the details of this. And so, as I say, I know there are still some detailed matters that need to be resolved between the staff, and those discussions are taking place. And it's for those sorts of reasons that we can't come up with presumably the final costings and all that. So there's a lot of detail still going on, but the next obvious step is to give this planning permission, or to consider this planning permission now.
Okay, thanks for that, Malcolm. Sorry for the confusions. George.
Thank you, Chair. I've got actually a couple of points I would like to make, and a few questions also to ask, so please bear with me. We talked earlier about attending other committee meetings, and one of the advantages of doing so is one has a better understanding of how the organization operates and the working of it, and also meets a member of staff and have the opportunity to speak with them and further their understanding of how the operation and the working of the North York Moors National Park Authority is conducted. So I have found my other meetings extremely helpful, including being part of the property working group, which has met a few times now since I joined and a few other members joined the authority last year. And I appreciate that was, I think, about 2 years after the decision was made about moving to new premises, because I think Ian mentioned that the decision was made in 2021.
June 2022.
June 2022, the decision. So between June 22, now am I right that since June 22 to now, this is the first time that the property review is being discussed publicly in a public meeting? Or has it been discussed before, not in the private session of a public meeting?
We have.
I mean,
To be honest,
No, it's quite relevant, because we talked about the secrecy and the amount of money that has already been spent. And I think last time I raised the issue about why the last meeting of the NPA, I raised the issue on why that specific item was discussed privately. So I'm actually pleased that we've made some progress, and some of the details are now being made public. If I'm not mistaken, for the first time, I think that's a positive step. I would like to see further transparency when it comes to this issue, because there are millions of pounds at stake, huge sums of money. It's not our money, it's taxpayers' money. And there are decisions that have to be fully scrutinized by the public and by the taxpayer. I mean, last meeting of the NPA, we spent a huge amount of time talking about £50,000 discussion between us and the North Yorkshire Council. Here we're talking about 100 times that amount roughly. So it's a significant amount of money. The question about the residents, Ian mentioned that there is a small number of residents who are concerned about it. I would just agree with the description of small. I think it's a large number of residents who are concerned about it, not a small number in Helmsley. And in terms of the traffic, I mean, you're right that the number of vehicles coming to Helmsley and leaving Helmsley every day probably is not changing, but the amount of miles they are driving within Helmsley, especially in residential areas compared to here, is higher, because they will have to go via Rickle drive all the way back, come back, and then when they go for lunch, for example, some of them might decide to drive. Now they can walk to the town. So there is debate on the number of residents. I think there are quite few. There are many residents concerned about those plans. And the issue with the traffic, I think it involves more residential area. I appreciate that now many employees drive within Helmsley to find a parking place, but they wouldn't drive as far as Rickle Drive, and that's part of Helmsley. Just two more points. The next one is about EDI. I think Councillor Warnican mentioned an important point about that. But I think that as a responsible organization, maybe we could ourselves try to find the best way for this building to improve its energy efficiency, improve its environmental credential, make it more EDI friendly, make it more look after the heritage, because we are a heritage organ, we are a conservation, we are an authority that's purpose is conservation, and I think leading by example rather than being a little bit hypocritical in terms of when we lecture others about how much they should invest in their own properties to conserve the heritage, to make them environmentally friendly, etc., more energy efficiency, then we should lead by example and do what we preach rather than the other way around. And the final thing, and I know that the numbers have not been finalized yet. However, based on the details that I have seen so far, most recently at the latest working group on property, I'm not convinced that the financial case, based on the numbers we have at the moment, is in favor of moving to new premises. I believe that the financial, the numbers support investing into this current building. I disagree with the methodology that was used in the analysis that we received as property working group, and also in the analysis that's presented in the private papers, which we are going to discuss later. And for those reasons, I'm going to be voting against seeking a planning application for the new development on Rickle Drive. Thank you, Chair, for your indulgence.
Thanks, George, and for pointing those things out. I'll just go to Arnold. I don't want to get into a tit for tat. I'd like to keep it a constructive debate, please.
Thank you. I'm a county councillor. I'm a candidate in a general election, but further and foremost here, I'm a member of this authority. And I find that I have to wear that cap when making my decisions and that cap when encouraging debate. What Councillor Jabors has done is the local member's statement, I think. I think I have faith and I believe that the members of this authority will make the right decision in terms of progressing this. And regarding, if anybody I know, people tell me I want public involvement, community level. And I'm absolutely convinced, without having been told this, that if a planning application is submitted, this authority will hold a consultation process with that application with the members of the public here. And if we aren't going to do that, I propose we do that. But I'm sure we will be doing that. So I feel that there's an element of having to just wear this authority's hat at the moment and put aside everything else we have in the background. And therefore, I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thanks, Arnold. And again, just to underline, when we walk into this building, we do the National Parks job first, or should do. I'd like to sum up a little bit, but I'll come to Christy first.
The only thing I was going to add, Jim, thank you, is just to reiterate a point Ian made, but perhaps wasn't brought to the fore in the conversation, which is that getting planning permission on property that the authority now owns would enhance the value of that property, whatever is decided to do with it subsequently. So it's in my view, it's in the authority's interest to seek planning permission, and the decision about what to do with that permission is subsequent and separate from seeking planning permission. But that was the only point I wanted to make.
Thanks for underlining that, and certainly, from the authority's own point of view, it's important to think of it that way. I'd just like to sum up a little bit, Ian, if that's okay. And first of all, just to reassure members and members of the public that this is a journey about achieving efficiency and value for money, and that's actually what's brought us to do it, because we do have, whatever way going forward, we believe we have a challenge in maintaining our property, and so it will be inherent that what we decide to do next does give us the best efficiency and the best value for money, and so it's useful to have members have a debate about that. As far as the sort of journey we've come, quite a few members of the authority have been interested in being involved in this, and so we have an informal property working group. I didn't mention it at the appointments time, but so this is quite, I can't help that. What I would say is that the idea was that.
I'll be nice to move it further away from you, Chairman.
Okay, usually I'm very quiet. I can sit at the back, and it's been members have been involved in the making of the recommendations and the journey that is in the report that Ian's talked about. Something is not right. Shall we try that? Is that better?
Yeah, it seems to.
So it must be.
That's the third one now.
I know, I've gone through two. And so, for those members that haven't been a part of the property working group, which has been alongside officers and looking at a lot of the details that are detailed in the report, it's really useful and important that you get the chance to have a look at this now and have the chance to ask questions. However, what we are doing is seeking planning permission, and seeking the planning permission will go through the process which publicly and openly tests the appropriateness of the proposals that we put, and that's what North Yorkshire Council's job will be to do to assess that. And so there will be a public consultation, but there will be the opportunity to test the details, of the designs and the requirements for environmental support, and all those things will be open, and that is the whole purpose of applying for planning permission. And so once we've got through that process, and if we are successful in obtaining planning with whatever conditions are attached, that will enable us then to go forward and to develop a much more detailed proposal about efficiency and value for money set against the situation that we find ourselves in our current, and that is that the business case that we will be assessing is, is this more efficient and better value than the alternatives that we have, and that's obviously the premise. It isn't an empire building thing. It comes of a long-term need to maintain our property. So just to set those things out. As far as the recommendations concerned, there was just a little bit to add. Did you want to say that, Ian, or shall I explain that and why it is, and then maybe John and Malcolm could accommodate it in their proposals?
Shall I explain the wording?
Yes, please.
Anything you want to. So you've got the Thanks, Chris. You've got the recommendations in front of your members. And in the chair's briefing at the end of last week, we felt that might be a little bit tight, a little bit too tightly. So we proposed to add the words, making any minor amendments deemed to be required to achieve planning permission to the end of the recommendation.
Are you happy to accept that, John? Absolutely. The purpose just being that as you go through these toing and froings, it may be that conditions, tweaks or something are required, so long as the aim of the recommendation is to seek planning for what you've seen and what we've developed. Happy with that too, Malcolm? Yes. Great. George?
Yes, just to answer the point that Councillor Warnican made, obviously in my analysis, I made absolutely clear that the financial case, in my view, doesn't add up. And I was reassured by your comment and what Ian mentioned earlier, that there will be a full business case with the final numbers that will be presented to this committee later in the year. Is that...
I think what we've committed to do is when we have the full financial case and when we are ready, we will seek permission from members. Now, whether it's this committee or whether it's a special authority, it will depend on the timing, but we will come back to members to seek permission.
Will it be in a public forum?
Well, that will depend on on where we've got to in terms of going out to contract, because we are not going to go out to contract having declared our hand, However, if we've gone out and sought tenders and we understand how the finances work, I mean, I will take advice from Richard as to whether it's sensible or not. But once we have all the numbers in place, my intention would be that that's something that we would debate.
Yes, I mean, I hope that that will continue in the spirit of transparency, because it is a large amount of money. We've debated in public meetings. We spent many hours in public meetings on significantly smaller amounts of money, and the number of meetings that I've seen across the authority where a huge amount of time is spent on debating amount that are five-figure sums is a huge. When we are talking about seven-figure sum, it is we've got to give it the amount of scrutiny that it deserves within the members, times of officers, and also the public scrutiny. But I just want to reiterate that the decision is far from final. And there is still, we've got as members to continue to challenge the financial case, because it's taxpayers' money. And whatever method you are going to share this information with us and try to seek approval from members, those numbers have to be properly investigated. And I'm saying this particularly because in the property working group, there was some information that was requested. It has not been provided even in the private section of the report. There has been some challenges to the financial methodology that was used, and again, I am not satisfied with the current financial case that has been made so far.
We will be discussing the progress on that later, but at this stage, for reasons that I think are quite understandable, the details are private. I would sincerely hope at the time that we committed ourselves to a way forward for property, then both the case for doing that and the numbers required would be public. We shouldn't be spending that much money without being able to account for it publicly, for sure. I'd be really concerned if we made a decision in a private meeting to spend that. But the time that would have to be at a time at which putting it into the public domain didn't damage the value and efficiency that we could get from that process. Those are my comments at this stage.
That's understandable.
Do you want to come back, Ian?
Just one general comment, just so that everybody's clear. We're not potentially going to make a choice between spending money on a new building and spending nothing on the old vicarage and Sawmill Lane. The choice that we will have is between spending a considerable amount of money here and at Sawmill Lane to bring them anything like to a safe and sensible standard, and spending a lot of money on the new build. It isn't a lot of money or no money. It's a lot of money on either project, and that's we can talk about the numbers, but I think that's really important for you all to remember.
Thanks, Ian. And so, as I said, we will be looking at how that pans out at this stage in private, because it has to be at this stage. This decision and the recommendation now is to obtain a planning permission to enable us to come to some more detailed and final proposals on that, and to consolidate the value of the land we bought for that purpose. And as I said, that will be an open and public process that we apply to North Yorkshire Council for. So we've had a really good debate. It's a step on the journey, but as I say, this absolutely isn't the conclusion, and we will come to that as soon as we can. It's proposed and seconded that we accept the recommendation with those minor amendments, just to enable tweaks should they be required through the toing and froing of a planning application process. And I'll take a vote on that. Could all those in favour please show? All those against? Just one. Any abstentions? So that recommendation is carried. But I'd also say, if members that are not on the property working party, because it's not a formal thing, who want to be, then it is open to everybody. It's not a decision-making body. It is a body, A, to help members understand the detail who want to be involved, and B, to make sure that our interests as members and officers, accommodated in that process. But the decisions which will be made about property will be made by the full authority. And so that working group is not a decision-making body. It's just there to help inform and enable the reports and the decisions that come to the authority. But if anyone isn't on that who would like to be, then just let me know. I'm sorry, I've got the wrong way. Sorry. See how long it takes me to break this one.
So you're not breaking them, it's just reverberating, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe it's... So... We're on now to item 11, which is National Park Authority Strategy and Business Plan Annual Report, page 30. It's Paul Fellows will introduce this for us.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. This item is to report on progress against objectives in our business plan. It's a 5-year plan. This is now reporting on the first 2 years of its operation. So it seems like it's quite a long time ago we adopted it, but we're getting through it. Each year we set a set of milestones. Against which we report to this committee. For this last year we had 93 milestones. I've just put a pie chart there in terms of how we're getting on. Good news is just over a third of them we've actually already completed against that objective. And I think 70% of our milestones we're well underway with. I've put I've put them in the report in terms of what we are doing well on and where there are concerns, but there's some on the slides there. So I think some of the key achievements over the last year, we've got the new website out, got a new pay structure, woodland strategy, blue corridors is now completed, Visit England work and tourism champions. That's not a complete list, that's just the slide. There's more detail in your report. Of the ones we haven't made as much progress as we'd hoped, again, full list in your report, but in particular, brown signs installation, it still continues to drag on somewhat. We're behind slightly on peat restoration and woodland management, and management plans for Brownsdale and Newtondale are still being worked up. The one milestone in the report which we were saying probably won't happen is Rosedale Kilns. Basically, it's not viable at the moment, so we've refocused efforts on elsewhere. And then finally, education and youth contacts are slightly behind targets. So this is really an opportunity for members to quiz any officers on how they think we're getting on. I think all the directors are here, so I'm hoping they will take the questions rather than me. But in which case, I'm just opening it up to the floor.
Thank you very much indeed. It was very easy to do. It's great with colour schemes when you're... So thank you. I was just wondering, the Rosedale Kiln project, which is now not viable funding, how much was it going to cost?
I do not know the answer to that, unfortunately. Bryony would do.
I probably know enough about it to be able to pick that up, Jane. I think there's a capital cost for restoration of at the time the initial works were costed, which is about 2.5 years ago. I think was 1.5 million. They'll have obviously increased in line with inflation and some cost of materials since then. So it's not an insignificant capital cost. And although a scheme of works was developed with with the RPA that could have ultimately attracted some capital funding from the RPA through high level stewardship for that. The sheer upfront capital cost that's required by either a landowner or the common rights holders to actually make that happen is just insurmountable. So trying to find a way of actually bridging the gap between the initial capital cost and the ability to offset that through the RPA is just proved impossible. We are exploring other routes. Some funding became available last year through Historic England. That may or may not prove useful, but I think we just realised that our ability to actually deliver this is going to be really, really challenging, and therefore it's marked red rather than amber.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Patrick?
Thank you, Chair.
Can I defer to Bryony on that one?
I think again, this is just the way that the business plan is structured. Is it takes its objectives from the National Park Management Plan, the 2,500 hectares of the management plan target across the whole of the national park, not just funded by the National Park Authority. We have some means of tracking that, which we do through the management plan annual report, which Paul and I have started discussing in terms of where we've got to in year 2 of the current management plan. My hunch, based on what we're aware of in terms of more wider developments in the national park, is that it probably is just about feasible within the timescale. Although the authority's contribution to that certainly won't be 100% of 2,500.
Malcolm?
Yeah, thanks for the report, Paul. I mean, as Patrick said, first of all, it just emphasises just the huge amount of work that's going on and the excellent stuff that's happening, which is good. But the purpose for bringing it to this committee is to give members the opportunity of looking at what's not going quite so well, and then check on questions. I mean, clearly there's a number that have already been achieved, which is good. Can I just mention 2? I noticed that on Danby, the target was a 5% increase, and I remember that we have had some discussions about the adverse effect that sort of COVID had on Danby and visitors down and everything. And so it just occurred to me that 5% is actually starting at a low point. And I think I'm right in saying it's great that we've got the playground going, and it'd be really interesting to see what happens to the numbers. But I'm right, I think, although you're on target for hitting the 5%, even if you hit that target, we'd still be below where we were pre-COVID, I think. So I suppose what I'm saying is maybe in retrospect, we actually want a slightly more ambitious target for that. But can you just tell me where we are, both compared with pre-COVID, immediately after, if you can say anything about the playground and what impact it's had? That'd be quite useful.
Thank you, Malcolm. Yes, it's a very pertinent point, because pre-COVID, the last full year, visitor numbers to Danby were roughly of the magnitude of around about 100,000. Obviously, there was a complete hiatus during the period, but they settled, at least in the year 22-23, at about 50,000, which is a huge decrease in where we were at. That target, which was set at that point, 5%, yes, you might not feel it's particularly ambitious, but at least it has been exceeded in the previous year. The target which was approved in the report which is the equivalent to this, which came last time for the visitor centres, requires us to be more ambitious this year again. So again, we're already taking the view that the investments made in the playground and in other facilities plus the marketing, we should start to see a significant acceleration of an increase. The point at which it might recover back to those pre-COVID levels is uncertain, and at this point we're not forecasting that. There are some real changes to the visitor tourism market. For example, there's been a large collapse in the number of coach party, coach organisation day trips which take place, for example, which is just not recovered since the COVID period. So we're still trying to make sense of what is the real effective baseline and where we should be pushing in that. So we'll keep members informed, but already this year the target that members agreed last time is certainly more ambitious than the 5% previously. Just in terms of your question about the playground and the impact that's having, already that has had a significant increase in terms of visitor numbers and hits in terms of social media and engagement with Facebook and Instagram and others. And we're seeing a lot of interest, which is culminating in visitor numbers increasing. Clearly, the weather doesn't help, and that's one thing that we try and work in and around. But certainly for the main summer season now, we have a significant interest in the site, and we are marketing that as much as possible.
Yeah. Is the lack of coaches probably a permanent thing? Are you concerned?
I think it might well be a change to just how people spend their leisure time and how things are organised. Again, we're trying to really understand that a bit further, but so far we've not really seen that level of day trip type visitors recover.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. The only other point I was going to mention, Jim, was affordable housing. I think we mentioned it previously at the previous meeting, and I know Chris is concerned about it. The reason I'm asking the question is more to say, is there anything else we can do about it? I mean, the problem seems to be getting the sites coming forward, and perhaps, dare I say, some of the concerns that parish councils are expressing. As you know, I live in Shopgate, which has got some affordable housing, which is a real benefit. And if there's anything that I think either the authority or the parish members can do to assist, I'm not sure there is, but I just thought I'd raise the question, Chris.
Thanks, Malcolm. Yeah, we were slightly concerned about 2 years into the management plan and not delivering the 20 we need to deliver a year to meet our 100 target. I think there are more positive signs of at least 3 or 4 of the schemes we've got in our pipeline document that we discussed with Broadacres coming forward. Paul, maybe you've got some details of that, but off the top of my head, there's Robin Hood's Bay and Danby that are pretty much almost there in terms of a planning submission, as is Lilholme, which is our first community-led housing, which is really good news. So I think there's signs of more positive things happening. In terms of what local members can do, Clive will be aware we had a parish council meeting at Rosedale last week, where we have a willing landowner, a site that would be a good rural exception house site scheme. We had the rural housing enabler there talking to the parish council about the process of putting all that together and seeing what views they had on that. We are going to undertake a parish needs housing survey for Rosedale. But I must be really honest, there was very, very negative feedback from that parish council meeting, which was very, very disappointing. Rosedale's not had an affordable housing scheme, neither has that southern area of the national park, where there's at least about 6 villages that clearly do have housing needs. And I just feel that members locally, like Clive, was brilliant at that meeting to attend those parish council meetings and to just dispel the myths that these are going to be taken by people from outside the national park and people that are, well, I won't use the words that we used at that parish council meeting, but we just need to tell them that the people that are moving into these really good designed, good quality housing schemes are people that people know in their villages, their sons, their daughters, their friends, people that have had to leave because they can't afford to buy housing. And we really did stress that point. So anything members can do to stress that point would be really, really helpful. And at the end of the day, if we've got a willing landowner, we've got a scheme lined up with a willing housing association, and we've got planning compliance, we're going to be faced sometimes with a planning application where there's not local community support, and as we did in Hinderwell a few years back, I will be recommending approval of those schemes. So, Mark, don't know if you wanted to add anything, Paul.
No, just say I think we've got 3 schemes that probably might come in for planning permission this year, so that's the positive side. But as Chris says, I've stood up at various planning parish forums and meetings recently and said what we need is land and what we need is community support, and we're not getting any.
Good, thanks for that, Chris.
Thanks. Useful discussion. I do think, I mentioned it at my parish meeting, there's quite a lot of blank faces, but what is noticeable, just without getting into the detail, is that those places that have quite recently delivered an affordable local housing scheme in the park do seem to be pleased and supportive of it. And so maybe the answer is trying to get some of those people to interact with some of the people who aren't sure and create a local advocacy, because people have long memories and all sorts of things have changed over the years in local and social housing, and I think at the moment some of the concerns that local people have maybe are not relevant to the current time. But anyway, that would be my comment. I'll go to Janet.
Thank you, Chairman. Malcolm asked the question that I had, which was about affordable housing, but I had 2 comments that were made. One was to support Patrick. I think the excellent work that we've done, we should all celebrate that, because there's been some terrific achievements. I had a concern, and I would appreciate if it's agreeable to members, that in future we have a little bit more identification of what we're going to do about it on the amber ones, because we can see that we're falling behind, but there's a worry then that you fall behind, so how are you going to pick it up? There's a lag somewhere. So if we could just understand a little bit more about what we're going to do about the ambers to get them on track, because I didn't find that as easy to understand. And my worry is that we could then end up with a swell of activity and not the resource, because we're out of sync. But other than that, those are the comments. Thank you very much, Chair.
Sure. It's something that was on the back of my mind, that maybe full authority is not the right place to try and fix some of the challenges that we see, but we have forums and FASC that should be chasing those things up. And on the woodland point, what we do ourselves as an authority and what happens in the national park, I would just comment that, if we do set ourselves management plan targets, we ought to be able to measure them and know what's going on, or they aren't right. So, if we've got a target and we don't know what's happening, something's wrong somewhere. That's maybe not for this meeting, but we need to make sure that our targets are relevant and measurable.
Jim?
Clive?
Thank you. I'll come back to the housing needs. I did go to the one on Thursday, which was very interesting, but I do agree with what Chris says. There's not the appetite out there, and certainly I'm finding this because no other place has come forward with community-led. They haven't got the appetite for actually finding these places. Who do I blame? Well, you could blame the parish councils themselves for not actually doing the work. They do know what's happening out there, but they just won't bring them forward. The other thing that I just wanted to say is the brown signs, and they're behind schedule. Is it an internal problem, or is this external? Why these aren't up to date?
Yeah, I can. Apologies for the audio. I could probably pick that one up. I mean, look, this has been almost a perennial delay, as members will be aware. It's featured in the last, I think, 2 annual business plan reports. We have made, I think, more material progress this year on a tripartite basis, working with North Yorkshire Council as the Highways Authority and with WSP, their contractors, in terms of signing off the scheme of works for the secondary signage, which needs to be in place in order to proceed to the primary main road signage. the delays latterly have been around invoicing, but I'm following those up with North Yorkshire Council at the moment. But it's been one of those things that's been behind schedule for quite a long time. I feel, talking to officers, I feel that we've probably made a level of progress that reduces immediately some of the risk around the Section 106 funding through which ultimately pays for the signage. But I really would like to make much more rapid progress in seeing that objective delivered in the next 12 months. It's been really frustrating for me and the wider team in the authority.
Thanks, Chair. One on says peat restoration project. I believe this was a 2-year project, was it not? If one hasn't started and the other's only just commenced, what's the chances of that being fulfilled within the time scale? Because it's a hell of a lot of work to do within that 1 year if that's the situation.
Okay. Bridie's got a hand up. So.
Yeah, so okay, sorry about that. So yeah, so we've got 2 projects that we'd lined up to do under the Nature for Climate Fund. One of which has commenced, but we do rely on landowner agreement to start the project, and we're still in discussion with the other landowner. Work can only be undertaken at certain times of the year. We've got a 2-year funded project through Nature for Climate, but we've got additional funding to do peat restoration beyond that. So we're still confident that we'll get that project started, assuming the landowner is happy to proceed. So whilst the 2-year funded project is from one funding stream, and that might make you sort of concerned that we might not be able to deliver it in time, whilst we might not be able to do all of it under that particular financial scheme, we've got other funding opportunities to pursue it in the rest of the business plan period.
Thanks, Bernie. Any other questions? No. Well, we've had a look through those targets, and obviously, you know, some of the things which are requiring effort would probably be best picked up by our purpose forums, or to make sure that we're keeping close to the solutions to getting those things moving. Or it may be that there are things that have come up which mean that they that's fine as well, just so long as we understand how issues have changed. So, are you happy to take the report?
Yes.
Yes, I'm looking for the recommendation. Last recommendation. Yeah, happy to note that the strategy in the business end of the report, having made comments on the contents. So, yeah, thanks very much. Thank you all for bringing that to us. Do we need a comfort break?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's see. We'll aim for sort of 5 minutes, but it might get to 10 because we'll need a break before we finish. So reconvene at 20 past. Proper time. Shall we reconvene?
Yes, please. Is that enthusiasm?
Hello.
Yeah, this is what I was just saying to Bob.
That's fucking strong, good news. It's going to put a spring in that step.
Have we got? Well, I think it's enough of us here. So let's get to me. I didn't realise that I got so used to doing. So, are we back to it, Judith? Thank you. So, item, yeah, item 12 is the Chief Executive's report, which is there on page 48. Do you want to say anything to that, Tom? Or?
Yes, I'll largely take this as read, Chair. I apologise, it's a little thinner than my normal Chief Exec's report. In light of the pre-election period of sensitivity, I've omitted some of the developments that relate to national issues and focus therefore on more local and operational matters. I think the one key point of interest there probably relates to Anglo-American and the ongoing discussions that we're having with the company about the slowing down of construction works at the Woodsmith mine and the implications of that. We met the company, I think, about a month ago, but remain in close contact with them as they work through the implications of those decisions to slow down capital expenditure. At the last count, I think, in addition to what I've covered in my report there, we received confirmation from Anglo-American that in terms of the decisions that it has been able to make at this stage, that it does plan to continue to sink the service shaft at the Woodsmith mine through the Sherwood sandstone, but will stop sinking the production shaft at the mine. And will continue with tunnelling works, albeit at a slower rate, for approximately 5 months when they resume after the planned maintenance that is undertaken this month in June. I mean, no announcements have been made yet by the company in relation to the impact on the workforce, although I know there's an awful lot of rumours around that. All we know is what the company's told us, that the impact will be significant, and therefore, in light of that, we've offered what support we can. As both a local planning authority, but more importantly, as an organisation that does a significant amount in terms of tourism development and destination promotion in North Yorkshire, in the North York Moors and the Whitby area, to try and support local businesses that may well be affected by the decisions that have been taken by the company. And I'll pause there, Chair, and take any questions on that or indeed anything else.
John Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, there are a lot of rumours floating around out there, Jim, and that's why it's really important that we continue to receive updates as often as we possibly can, so we don't allow the vacuum of a lack of information to be filled with self-fulfilling prophecies in the end about the eventual demise of the project. And the fact that they continue to work on sinking at least one of the shafts, and that after planned development they're going to continue extending the tunnel, I think are useful things to know. But it's hard, isn't it, to encapsulate the importance of what's happening at the moment. It's incredibly significant. So appreciate the update, and we need to be kept updated.
Thank you, John. Anybody else? No, I mean, just to confirm that the authority will, I'm sure, do all it can to enable progress. Should that be possible? We've signed up to it. We've got our appropriate arrangements, and we'd really like to see the jobs and the financial benefits of the project, come forward as soon as ever possible. Any other questions for Tom? Jay?
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for all you do. Very often as a chief executive, you never get thanked. So thank you. Just one thing, indicated is the £300,000 surplus that's gone into reserves. Is that going to then be reallocated out to other projects, such as, I know when we were in our health and wellbeing forum, there were certain things that weren't going to be able to be afforded, that they had hoped to be afforded. And so I know that it was something Janet was and so I'm just sort of wondering how that's going to be where's that going, if you see what I mean, or what's happening with it.
Yeah, I mean, Colin, I think we'll cover a little bit this in the next item as chair of FRAS, where we had quite an extensive discussion with members about both the year-end surplus and what to do with that, but also the additional 500,000 of funding that we received from DEFRA as a one-off allocation split between revenue and capital. People correct me if I'm wrong, but the decision taken by FRASC at the time was to allocate 200,000 of the 300,000 to the property reserve and 100,000 against our emergency reserve, as per a previous discussion and agreement that FRASC had made around bolstering our reserve. So it won't be allocated to activity at this stage. It will be retained in reserves for those particular purposes.
National Bank of England did hold its AGM on the 5th of June online, and the chair of the South Downs is currently chair of National Bank of England, and obviously it will be a time of challenge and opportunity, as we come forward with the new government coming up and all those things to think about. So a lot of good work for National Parks England to do over the coming year, I'm sure. Whether Exmoor and the Broads will rejoin National Parks England, I'm not sure, but we would hope so. And just after that, on the 7th and 8th of June, the National Parks UK Forum met in Loch Lomond and the Trossachs, and Brian was my responsible person to come up and keep an eye on that. It's always good for the UK National Parks to get together. As you'll remember, we signed up to a commitment for a project called Race to Zero, and we had a bit of a talk about how we'd be communicating progress to that. And also there was a national Parks Board apprenticeship scheme, which was quite interesting. And apparently, organisations, not only National Parks, can sign up to boardroom apprentices, which are funded by government. And I think those are the two things to take out of it, but always good networking and to hear and talk about the challenges and opportunities that others face. Nothing else to add, really. So we'll move on. Thanks, Tom. Next, we are it's the reports from the chair of FRASC. So there's a written report here for you, which is quite extensive. Do you want to introduce it, Colin?
Just a couple of points, just to what Tom said on the financial outturn for this 301k that was we put into reserves and into the property report. The 500k additional funding from DEFRA. I did get Judith and Vicky to put the full list in because it's quite extensive, and just so everybody can see where this money's going, because it needs spending before the end of the year, which if it had all gone into property, we couldn't see it all being spent by then, so had to put it into different things. So it went into revenue and capital, and as the list suggests, it's there's a lot of different subjects it's getting put towards. And yeah, any questions? Yeah, I'll do my best. If Pete's here, if it's financial, he'll be able to back us up one way or another. But thank you.
Thanks for that, Colin. Thanks for putting the detail on the agenda as well. Were you indicating, Patrick?
I was. Yeah. Apologies if I should know this if I've missed it, but the excellent news that the FIPL is being extended. Has that come with an announcement of how much extra money that is? And apologies if that's already been announced and I haven't picked that up.
Yeah, I'll do my best to answer that, Patrick. So just to confirm, the officer time associated with advice and administration of FIPL has been extended by a further, I think, 6 months beyond the end of the 2024-2025 financial year, because there will be some important kind of close down administration associated with the final weeks and months of FIPL projects that go out and that are spent within this financial year. There's been no decision prior to the general election around an extension of the FIPL grant funding. There has been certainly a confirmation with National Park Authorities and National Landscapes that the local advisory elements of FIPL will continue until 2027 to support the rollout of elms, particularly SFI and countryside stewardship, as part of the agricultural transition. But we'll await to see what happens with the next government.
Good news.
Yeah. As I mentioned, it's the sort of thing that National Parks England will be, challenged with and hopefully active upon in the coming months. Yeah. Okay, Jane.
Sorry, just one more thing. I noticed the fencing at 75,000. Will we not get farming grants for that? Because the
Levisham fencing.
Yeah. Would that not come under farming grants? Because as a small farmer myself, I know that I've gone and got grants, and basically it's pretty much covered it. That's a lot of excess on grants.
I'll bring Bryony in, because I know that this was an item that was discussed at FRASC and did receive some challenge from members. So I'll just invite Bryony to explain the challenge in receiving specific grant funding for that particular item.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I think our understanding is that because it's replacement fencing, it isn't eligible for grant funding. So, yeah, unless we've got that wrong. But my understanding
mine was replacement and allowed. I'll just put it out there.
Okay, we'll look into that again then.
Thank you. It's interesting because I do know that FRASC, when I was at FRASC, it had a good chew over those points, and we do need to be confident that if we're spending our own money, that there isn't an opportunity to match it, or so. If we could just make sure that is the case as we go forward. Yeah.
I didn't know that it was deemed to be too big an area for it to come under that legislation. I think so. It had to be something specific.
So I think that was just the question that we feel we weren't quite sure. We would like to be sure. Yeah. Okay. Anything else for FRASC? Right. Thank you, Colin. So we'll move on to feedback from Conservation and Land Management Forum. Is that you, Patrick?
Thank you very much, Chair. Just an observation, it's actually now called the Conservation and Climate Change Forum, but it's a minor point. And also, I'm very honoured to have been voted in to be chair again of this forum, and I look forward to the next year very much. The last meeting we had took place on the 25th of April, Chair, and we went up to Bransdale. Bransdale was our focus, and it was an excellent day and very well organised by officers. What we were really looking at is that there is a, as we've heard already today, there's a conservation management plan that's been commissioned for Bransdale. It isn't quite finished, but I believe the final draft will be prepared during the autumn. And everyone's heart may sink at the thought of discussing a management plan. It's not always the most exciting document people read, but actually it is at Bransdale, and I think it could really unlock a very good vision for that dale. Where Bransdale's fortunate is the big chunk of it is owned by the National Trust, and if it's not the National Trust, it's Forestry England or one big single landowner. So, but where it's been successful, I think, is that a lot of tenant farmers and people who are living in that community have been bought into this conservation management plan, and I hope it'll unlock some very good grants for the area. And I think it was Malcolm on the day asked the question: could these management plans be rolled out for other areas in the park, for example, Billsdale? And I think that's a very good idea. Although somewhere like Billsdale might be more complicated, I think Bransdale is a good starting point. So it's just something I think we should reflect on, and it could be a very good use for Section 106 money, because these plans are not cheap and they are a huge amount of effort if they're to be successful. So we learned a lot, and we also looked at a very good scheme for flood reduction. That was a revitalised scheme at a farm called Bonfield Gill. Prior to us going up to Bransdale, we briefly we were given two papers for information only. One was about Levisham and the whole future of the Linking Levisham project. And Tom, thank you for your excellent update at the members' update the other day. I think it's really exciting that there is an opportunity at the park, rather than just, if you like, sitting on its asset. There is an opportunity for it to lead by example. And I'll just leave it at that, because there's a lot going to go on there. So we reviewed a paper, and finally we were given, briefly, we were given a paper for a proposal to plant quite a lot of woodland, 88 hectares, up on the Mulgrave estate towards Whitby. It's called Churchdale Woodland Creation. And there was we had, unfortunately, only a brief discussion, because is this a good thing or a bad thing? You know, obviously I've asked earlier today of this ambition of planting a lot of trees across the park, but it's got to be the right tree in the right place, or right woodland in the right place. And we were debating whether this was a good example of that or not. It did not go much further than that. Anyway, it was an interesting day. Thank you everyone for coming. And the next meeting is a week today, where Janet and I are where it's a joint forum, Twitch. Anyone is welcome to come.
Thanks, Patrick. Really useful information. Any questions for Patrick? George?
I'm hoping to be there.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm hoping to be there too.
Right.
Good. So thanks very much for that. So, Clive?
Yeah. Thank you, Patrick. I was interested in what you were saying about tree in the right place. When they're looking at that, do they actually look at what wildlife is in that area? Because if you put trees into a certain area, that wildlife will go. You know, just think of curlews and things like that. So is that always taken into account?
It's a very good point. I don't know the woodland I don't know this area personally, and we were just given a paper for discussion. I think it's the principle we were really being asked to consider, and what you say is absolutely right. Because my understanding, I may have this wrong, is that this is a new woodland on a grassland farm. It's just a brand new wood on a farm. I don't know if that's true or not. I think that's right. So you would hope that the assessments have been done. But if you take it on, I don't think there's much we could do to prevent that woodland happening.
But that's a shame.
I think we can comment on it, and we should in those respects, but I don't think we could prevent it. It's not like a planning application. But absolutely fair point.
I believe Churchdale's just coming out of Glaisdale, and I was talking to the farmer that actually had that land up till 2-3 years ago, and he said there was only 10 acre of the whole farm you could get a tractor on. Now that says, well, the best thing for it, and which is what he said, the best thing for it was to plant trees on it. Like you said, that yeah, it's the right tree in the right place, but all the way up that valley, that dale, the farmer further up, he's been taking early retirement or retirement from the farm. So the woodland is going to go from the bottom just above Beggar's Bridge, I believe, up to just out of Egton. I'm not sure whether that's the whole area or that was the proposed area at the time. But that's so much of the area that's concerned, like at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is the right tree in the right place.
Well, I think it's a subject for future forums. Thank you, Chair. Thanks. Oh, sorry.
John. Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say I went on the Bransdale trip as well, and would like to say how useful it was, particularly in relation to the peat restoration project. I'm interested in that. I managed to get myself locked in the old Bransdale watermill, but that only added to the enjoyment.
Thank you, John. It seems like they let you out anyway. Malcolm.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, just briefly, I'd like to see you. Yeah, again, Bransdale was really good. The thing that struck me about the management plan is it was such a practical thing, and it was bringing together lots of different people. And that's why I was thinking it'd be quite useful to do in other places, because in Bilsdale there's quite a lot going on, but it's different people, different farmers doing things, and the community aren't necessarily involved. They just see these things happening. I'm not sure the best way to bring the community together in that way, but I was quite impressed. As you said, it was easier in Bransdale because of the ownership. I can appreciate it's more difficult when you've got diverse ownerships in a larger dale and so on and so forth. Just something worth thinking about, how you do take that sort of approach in a more complex sort of area. And if there's a way of doing it, I'd be interested to have a go. So I'll just leave that out there.
Thank you. Good to hear the forum doing its job. So on to recreation and well-being, which is Janet. There is a written page, but do you want to introduce?
I hope we continue the forum doing its job, Chairman, on this one. Yes, there is a short report there. The objectives of the forum are also to scrutinise the management plan. So when we choose our items, we make sure that we've got those objectives in mind. And I must thank the officers and members of the forum, because we got through quite a lot on that session, some quite big topics really. The first thing to say is that the Public Rights of Way agreement is going to come back to a future forum, because there's still consultation going on with the North Yorkshire Council. Another item that we will want to think about prioritising is the local cycling and walking action plan, because there are things there about which ones are going to give us the most effective use of those resources. So I think there's some work to do on how we might want to prioritise that, because there's good work being done there. Thank you, Jane, as well for trailing the sort of financial needs that we explored in the health and wellbeing strategy, and some of the time-limited posts that were in place and pilots for a year. And I think we'll make sure that we get our tentacles well and truly into Prask and any excess money in the future, because there were things that are stopping, and we want to test those pilots and then just see if we can roll them out. I think the nature, the calendar, the small steps to nature and mental health and well-being was absolutely, for me, that was a real highlight of the meeting. Practical things to do to enjoy getting into the parks and feeling your health. And I think probably, and I don't want to, please, Chairman, I don't want to open any debate, but I am so delighted that members did listen to what I asked was on the car park tariff enforcement, not to find themselves reliving any parking ticket they may or may not have had themselves, because that wasn't the purpose of the meeting. So everybody didn't make it parochial, and they just looked at what those issues were. And I think the report just says that the park is welcoming, people pay, and they enjoy what they receive, and that money is used to enhance the park facilities. So I'll happily answer any questions if members have any, but hopefully it's in the report. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Janet. I was just wondering if that was why we got given the members parking pass just as we came into the meeting today. If so, thanks very much. But we do quite a lot, so it's good to have that. Questions for Janet? I just personally, I thought the health and wellbeing opportunities were really exciting, and once we find out how they work and exactly what we could do, scaling those up would be something I'd really look forward to talking about. John.
Thank you, Chair. I was really pleased to see the progress that's been made in trying to establish socials prescribing. And one of the initiatives is to put materials out in GP surgeries in Cleveland. A recent meeting of the Scarborough Area Constituency Committee, we were given a set of proposals to build economic strategy around certain initiatives. One of those initiatives was how do we go about building social prescribing in the area, and they were awarded a significant. I'm about to say I forgot, but I think it was £20,000 towards developing the business case for working to build social prescribing. And I commented at the time, I really hope that those people involved in that part of the world are liaising with the National Park to make sure that you have a combined approach to building social prescribing across the area. So when those letters do drop on the doorstep of the National Park in the next couple of weeks, I hope we respond positively and say, yeah, of course we need to work together to make sure this kind of initiative works for the benefit of all in the area.
I mean, I definitely, I think Joel's nodding as well. Yes, there we are, that's a short answer. Yes. Sorry, Chair, I'll just...
It just assists because it's an ever developing area, and one of the real constraints for green social prescribing is the bottleneck which occurs when you have to have GP referral, because as we know, GP appointments and capacity are very limited. So we're looking at a model which actually does use social prescribers that are embedded within other staff located within GP surgeries, and that should start to allow us to then still have the effective medical prescription element, which is really important to that model, but allow it to actually expand further. There's a variety of ways in which that's being looked at. In fact, actually working with the NHS bodies over in Scarborough, we're actually all connected up on that already, and we're working with the social prescribers in that place to look at the model of how that could work. It is a challenge in terms of GP sign up and getting their attention, and that's one thing where we're going to have to work even more in collaboration with other partners to get to that space, because that's definitely the real blockage to rolling this out much further, because I think everyone agrees the evidence base is there. It is a really effective model and a good use of resources to do, but it's that thing about scaling it up and making sure we can meet the capacity, provide the capacity to meet what I think is a significant amount of demand. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Joel. So on to EDI forum. So I'm on the wrong page. I know it was. Yeah, looking at the wrong page. Yes, please. So I'll be page.
Okay, well, I'm starting with an apology. That's my start point, because in fact I did prepare something on my laptop, which, because I had a few livestock get out this morning, I grabbed my laptop bag and it was heavy because I had a coffee flask in, not a laptop. So I've come without my laptop. So I've been scrolling. I've got the coffee, I've got my priorities right. So it's unprepared, but first I'd just like to say that it's early days for the EDI forum. We've had one official meeting. That meeting was really well attended, and it was really, really positive. One of the things that I wanted to get from that meeting was that we just didn't have meetings. I wanted actions. So we came away with some actions. And on my laptop, Joel has sent me an email to say where we are with those actions. Maybe you could share that with all the members. But some of them were things like engaging with the Scouts, tramper expansion, access to major locations, signage for that, and social prescribing. So there's a lot of overlap. And in fact, I think there's overlap between all three forums. At some point, we might have a tripartite meeting as well to work on the overlap. I chair two patient committees on two general practices within my division. And both of those, via the patient groups, have got social prescribing on the agenda. So maybe a way to get into the GP practices is through the patient groups. And it's their practice manager and nurses and practitioners like physiotherapists and nutritionists that are getting involved in this prescribing element. So I can see that maybe sharing that with well-being will benefit the rollout, so to speak. George, you're more than welcome to come to the next meeting. In fact, if you as long as you don't say anything, I jest. But everybody's welcome, and it's on Thursday. It's a Teams meeting. I think it's 10 o'clock start. I might be, yes, Joel's nodding, it's 10 o'clock start. And out of that meeting, I'm hoping that we'll get some more indication as to what actions are being taken place and maintain the momentum, because at that meeting, my agenda is to show that actions have occurred and also that there might be some more actions as a result of that. Right, overlap. Sorry, I'm just reading my scroll, Chair. I think that's pretty much covered it. It is early days, but it's positive early days, and I'm enthusiastic. If I wasn't so busy, I would have maybe had more communication with Joel about this, but I didn't declare a general election, so that's where I am. So I apologise for being remiss in attending to this as much as I should have done. And I'll take any questions, Chair. Thank you. Not can guarantee I can answer them though.
Thanks for that update. Any questions for Arnold? We know that there's a meeting in about a week's time. John.
Just say, I think that's a really good idea to have a cross committee involvement in that on that one specific issue. I think that would be a really useful idea to see how we can integrate across the range of stuff that we do. It's a good idea.
Thank you, Chairman. And I think it's a really good idea as well. And I think just to support what you said, Arnold, it was a really positive meeting. People were really well engaged. And I think we came out of that with a better understanding and some actions that felt deliverable. So it was, very good.
Good. One of the things I liked about it is the demographics change. You look around this room, and in the EDI we have some young people. And I think that's something that I would actively encourage, that we need to have a successional planning going on. And hopefully those people may end up being where we are today because they've got so much interest in the authority. Can I ask Joel, have you got anything you would want to add to the meeting? How it went?
Just two substantive items that we considered. One is that we looked very early on at a very large landscape level funding bid, which we're doing with Heritage Lottery Fund. So we had a really good discussion around how we could infuse EDI within the whole of that bid, and that was an excellent presentation on that, and I'm sure that will filter through. But the other thing to highlight was that through National Parks England, we're participating in a scheme with series of advisors looking very much at how we can build in and bring about some of that change in terms of the national parks and EDI. And there's a series of workshops that are exploring with those within national parks who have differing perspectives. And then there's two collective workshops. We were due to host one. Unfortunately, it was on the 4th of July, and because of the election, that's been postponed, and it's now going to be held elsewhere. But it's just to say that there is quite a bit of work that's ongoing in this space, of which one of our officers who's on secondment to National Park England is taking a leading role in and doing an excellent job. So there's going to be quite a bit of resource that will come out from this process, which I think will be really helpful in moving along this agenda collectively as national parks.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I was a bit remiss of me not to highlight that big discussion that took place. The only thing I would say is that the informal meeting before the formal meeting, the informal meeting felt it was important to get our own house in order regarding EDI. And I'm highlighting that because I wouldn't want that to be left in the distance by moving forward. Just hold that thought that we said we would think we need to sort our own EDI issues within the national parks. For example, if we do move to a new location, that's going to address some of the issues that we have in this particular building. So I don't want to lose sight of that. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Arnold. As you say, it's early days, but I think it's looking good and useful. So well done and thank you. I think that deals with feedback from forum. There was the trusts on the next bit, isn't it? So on 15 is reports from members and outside bodies. So we've got Colin's done a report on the trust. Did you want to add something to that, Colin?
Well, I'll add something on this
one chair, but Christine's going to give the report on last Thursday's meeting, which will be a verbal report. Thank you. Not getting out of that one. Yes, we're just talking about nature prescribing project, which you'll see down here that James has been working on this for ever so long now, and the trust has produced a calendar of localised nature prescriptions and has co-created with local GPs social prescribing who will be prescribing nature to select patients from summer of 24. The trust secured funding from Beyondly, which is helping fund this, which we get so much for staffing out of it. But James has put a lot of work into this, and I hope we can all work together on it. If everybody's pulling in different directions, it's not going to help. But going down the list there, it just shows what we have been doing up to now, and I'm sure Christine will give a bigger update on what we came up with on Thursday.
Colin's very helpfully provided me about 2 seconds of preparation for what we did on Thursday.
I told you that on Thursday.
I don't recollect that at all. Anyhow, so what did we do on Thursday? Well, having a look back, there was some conversation just looking at the overall progress, as we always do in trust meetings, and considering various risks and issues, because there are a huge number of projects underway, and thinking about how we proceed over the longer route. We always have a good conversation about the finances and how we manage that and the various opportunities around grants, etc. Also, there was a sort of, I can't remember exact arrangements, but a partially sponsored or bicycle ride earlier in the year, and there's another one scheduled at Sutton Bank, which I saw Colin helpfully has a flyer for if people are interested in that. But that one's all family event sort of cycle ride, as well as some longer routes for people that are more committed or fitter, however you want to look at it. Yeah, that one. So that's put on by Minds and Miles, and their website on struggle events has quite a lot of information. Thank you, Colin. As Colin already mentioned, Birds on the Edge. We looked at the draft accounts, and a good portion of the meeting was given over to a presentation from the chap that's running their Stepping Stones program, which is really interesting, going into some deprived schools and helping to connect children with nature. And the idea is these are schools outside of the park at the moment, and the idea is that the children will be able to come and visit the national park as part of that program. But what was recognized is that kids that never get out into nature and don't have any connection with nature, that they just giving them the one day to come to the park is kind of too much stimulatory overload for them, and it's hard for them to really get the benefit of it. So this is a program of sort of gradually building up that connection with nature, so that then when they do have their day to come to the park, they can actually really take it in and appreciate what they're seeing and have those connections and connect it to things in their day-to-day life, which seems to me just a really powerful concept. And the chap that's running it, his name's David, I've forgotten his surname now. David Sims, thank you. Seems really perfectly suited for that role, and has a professional history with teaching and also nature things. So really fascinating to hear from him and to hear how that's progressing. So I think that, unless you have something else to add, Colin.
Absolutely. I think you've done very well.
Oh, thank you very much.
On Christine's report there, Mr. Chairman, some members, particularly those on the county Authority will probably be aware of a new scheme, relatively new scheme, which is being promoted in primary schools in the county, and it's called Wild Schools. And it builds really on the whole ethos of developing interest in nature. I've got one in my own division that's really taking it on board. And the aim is to get children out and about into the countryside. But more than that, I think what it is also doing is enabling them to build new skills, and at the same time, it ticks so many boxes within the primary school curriculum. Health and well-being, and science and maths and geography and so on. If anybody's interested, I can let them have more information about it. I think it's a great idea, and I think it dovetails nicely with what Christine was just talking about, targeting youngsters who probably never get a chance to go on what some of us of a certain age would recall as nature walks and such things. But I think it's got to be good for the kids and good for society in general.
Yeah, just reassure Colin that regarding social prescribing, I take your point about not working in different work directions. I think, we've got James on the EDI group, so we've got that conduit where the information is travelling between us, and I think maybe instead of having 3 people meeting, we should have 4 groups meeting by the sounds of it. But the other thing is that I was at county when the wild schools was being proposed. I actually thought it was for disruptive children when I saw the heading, but in fact it is about nature. But then I also challenged it because I thought we had something in place called forest schools that was doing that very job, but apparently not. So.
I think it's a step on.
Right. Okay. Right. Thank you.
What David did actually say was that the children that were coming to his afternoons or his days were that they were looking forward to it now, rather than, we didn't want to go to school. And that day, he was hoping that the children, instead of bunking off down the street or wherever, they were actually looking forward to attending. And just like there's only 1 year that he was actually looking after, and the year below that were coming up to the following year, they were actually looking forward and saying to parents, they wanted to go up because they were on these nature with David Sims. These schools were Cademan and Grangetown from Middlesbrough area, which was very sort of run down area, you might say. And but they were actually looking forward, whether there were children that were disruptive or not, not 100% certain, but they were actually looking forward to attending and and learning things. And he said he didn't educate by how a normal education system worked because he didn't believe in that. And he told them to pick soil up, and they got their hands mucky and he said, well, that's what's providing you food for the future. And kids were looking at it and they were getting a lot more out of it than just getting their feet mucky or getting wet or whatever. So it was going forward, and he was quite pleased with the progress, and he's hoping that the kids will get more out of it when they come out into the national parks and see that the national parks is, well, there's a tree and there's grass rather than tarmac and bricks and mortar that they only see walking from house to supermarket to wherever, and that was what he was hoping to achieve. Thank you.
Thanks, members. It's good to see. I must say, it looks to me like you talk about scaling up our delivery of health and well-being. looks to me that those are the sort of initiatives that the National Park should be using its effort and resource to build on. It does good work. So, campaign for national parks. Do you want to say something on that, Christine?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Campaign for National Parks, as folks know, well, it's in the name, isn't it? Do lots of campaigns really to try to make things better within the national parks across the country. The AGM was held in May, so just to report back on that, a bit of a reminder that over the course of the last year, they've launched the Nature Recovery Health Checks, which focused in on each park and sort of gave a sense of the status of each park in terms of actually delivering for nature. I mean, I think we're quite fortunate here because we do a lot, and we've got kind of a forward-looking group of people in the members and in the staff helping us to achieve that. Not all the parks are perhaps making the same level of progress, though, so I think it's an interesting thing for them to continue to challenge that we meet a higher standard. So that's interesting and something folks can reflect on. Just a reminder also about it being the 75th anniversary of national parks, that they've done some work around. And thirdly, that they had also launched a youth manifesto focusing on transport, jobs and schools. As people will be conscious about the general election and giving their campaigning organisation, of course, they've got a campaign focused around the general election period. That's got several areas of focus. First and foremost around nature, rapid nature recovery, rather in protected landscapes. And really, as part of that, their proposal is for a new deal for national parks that would include increased investment and a flurry of green jobs, mostly through a national nature service that they're proposing. Increased pace of new designations through a new process, moving further and faster to promote triple size water peat restoration and public land for nature, and a doubling of a budget for nature-friendly farming. So these are all part of their campaign approaches that hopefully, by and large, we would support. It also improving access. I think it's been part of their campaign for a while, but they're re-emphasizing it about every young person should have access as part of the national curriculum to a national park. And some extensions to the Freedom to Roam sort of process, which would include a ranger service, which has been bounced around in various ways through Glover, etc. as well. So that's not entirely new, but interesting to have refreshed support for it through this campaign. And another point, also seeking some new powers for National Park Authority boards, which might include things like transport and second homes specifically. So a huge amount of information that they're trying to cover off and really push the political parties to consider as part of the election campaign and going forward. I'm happy to share further information with folks if they're interested, or obviously they've got an established website with lots of things on it that you could have a look at. But thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Christine. On to Housing Board.
Thank you, Chair. I must apologise first of all. My Wi-Fi connection at home is absolutely appalling, and I can never get on camera. It's always breaking in and out of verbal as well, so I'm having to go. So I didn't get to hear the whole of the meeting, but one thing I did get to hear, really, I thought that this time everybody was really waiting for the Yorkshire and North Yorkshire Mayor to be take on more responsibility within the committee, see what he could do. And it seemed to be see what his thoughts were. And Simon Myers, who's the chair, also thought that. And but he did say that he is totally for affordable and social housing within North Yorkshire. So hopefully that will be taken forward. I don't know if Chris knows of anything else which I've missed, probably.
Thanks, Clive. The Housing Board's still really in a bit of a transformational state, and it's not 100% certain whether it will continue in its existing form with North Yorkshire, York and the East Riding, and obviously that's to do with the new combined authority. So it's a bit uncertain as to whether the Housing Board in its current format will continue, and we'll update that as soon as we know. I think the main issue that there's been to this authority already, which has been debated at meetings, is the North Yorkshire's housing strategy, which was launched at one of the recent board meetings, and it's a document that we had input into and endorsed with a few comments. So that's my understanding as to where it is at the moment, Chair.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you, Claire. So I think that brings us to the record. Yep, so that deals with our reports from outside bodies, I think. Yeah, good. Thank you, members. So moving on then to item 16, which is on the record. There's 2 or 3 things on here. So, our provisional dates for 2025 are there listed for you. I would just say, again, we didn't do it at appointments, but we did have a small couple of members working parties to help look at training days, dates, and make sure that our diary was useful and supportive. And I think, I think I had, was it Christine and Clive? Yeah. So if you'd be happy to do that again, or if anyone else was desperate to do that, we could just have a look at that and make sure that we got the content of those days right, and also that we made sure that Judith isn't sending emails into an abyss and getting no response back again, which it could easily happen. So if that's okay, we could just reaffirm that those members could have a get together and check over that. Okay, John?
Just while you're on that, Chair, I just wondered if any Judith or anyone had any further feedback on the proposed member training day on the 3rd of July. I suggested that it might be awkward. That day might be awkward for several members. I know for one, I'll be very, very busy that day. I'd be happy to hear that other members have got a clear diary and fully intend to attend the training event.
Thanks for raising that, John. It was on my notes and I forgot it, so thank you for raising that. I think the question is that actually it's been there for quite a long time. Officers have put quite a lot of store on this, and I think for one reason or another, it probably is important that we do this so that a good range and a good representation of members can be present. Did you want to add something to that, Tom? We'd just like to know that, because I think if we found that there were 2 members, disappointingly, because officers have put some work into it, it would be really better to put it to a date when members could participate.
No, I mean, it absolutely. We have, as a group of officers, been giving quite a lot of thought to this session, which is a session around the authority's medium to long term strategy. And so it is really important that we do have good attendance so that we can get member involvement and participation in doing that. We have a strategy at the moment. It's 2.5 years on, but I'm always keen to look at where we go next and how we develop. And so I think it'd be useful to get some sense from members now about what the level of participation will be, so that we can either press ahead with that date or recalibrate.
Okay. Well, so could you please make sure that you've responded one way or the other by close of play today as to whether or not you can do that, and then we'll make a decision. Okay. Go on, Alan.
I don't normally talk this much. I'm just wondering, item 3.2. Does that suggest that all the forums have a budget, because it's only £700 per annum, but it might be useful on well-being to have somebody and also on EDI. I'm just thinking, where's that funded from?
We haven't got there yet, but when we get
there,
we'll discuss it.
Sorry. Am I ahead of it?
Yeah. Okay. So, the second item is the UK National Parks Conference, 24th to the 6th of September, hosted by Northumberland in Newcastle. And as per usual, it's the biannual conference. It's something that all the UK national parks support, and usually quite informative and useful for promoting our wares to interested people. We've got, is it 4 delegates? Or is it 5? I can't, 5, yeah, 5 places. We agreed to send 4. Requested 5. So, and the theme of the conference hosted by Northumberland, they are looking for underrepresented groups. So, I think bearing that in mind, and also bearing in mind that usually we try and prioritise places for people who haven't been or are interested. I think the best thing to do is if you could let myself or Judith or Tom know if you'd like to go, and we'll find a process, bearing in mind that the theme is about underrepresented groups, and bearing in mind that we have a sort of long-standing convention of trying to give opportunities to people who haven't been to one. We'll come to a way of selecting or coercing enough people to fill our places. Is it okay to leave it like that?
Yeah, I think again, it'd be really good to try and sort this by I think the deadline that we've put in the paper is the 24th of June, so next Monday. So if you could let us know your interest in attending that conference by close play next Monday, that would be really appreciated. I mean, it's a great event. It's as Chair's indicated, the biennial conference of the 15 UK national parks. So it brings together staff, officers and members from all 15 national park authorities plus key stakeholders. Theme this year is very much around equality, diversity and inclusion, and although it will be based in Newcastle, it will involve a number of study trips out into the Northumberland National Park as well.
Great. So I'll be looking forward to being over-nominated and having to try and find a way of getting us to fit the box. If not, I'll be on the phone to you. Okay. So then on to 3 is co-option of our young person from Youth Voice. You'll have to back me up here, Tom, because I may not get this right, but I'll give it a start. So over quite some period, we made a commitment to try and interact with young people on the board, and that distilled down through several authority decisions to the authority looking to Youth Voice to find us 2 co-optees to come on our forums for a year. And so at the moment we have 1 co-optee who would like to join Conservation and Climate Change Forum. We have been through a process whereby myself and Tom and Patrick, as chair of that forum, have had a kind of chat, appraisal with the young chap, Luke Holmes, and found that we consider he'd be suitable to do that. This is a journey of discovery, and so I think a lot of it is about finding out where we get to, both for him and for us in a year's time. But to me, it's really exciting actually to have got to this point, whereby we can actually co-opt a young person to take part in our discussions on the forum. I've also taken a bit of a flyer in putting a figure for his proportionate remuneration, because hopefully after this meeting, if the authority is happy to endorse his appointment to the forum for a year, we'll be sending him a letter inviting him to do that, and also rightly and properly, offering him a bit of remuneration on the same proportion that the members get for their allowances, which seemed right and proper. And I'm told that we have space in our corporate budget to do that. So the recommendation is that we, as we say, that we appoint Tom Link to the Climate Change Forum for a year and see how it goes. Have I missed something, Tom?
No, I think you've covered that very accurately. I mean, just to recall, this was one of the recommendations of the governance review that members approved about 15 months ago, I think now, and we've been able, through process and iteration, to move that forward with this particular option to the Conservation and Climate Change Forum.
George?
Yes, happy to second.
Good. Well, I think we need to. Did you want to speak, Patrick?
Just very briefly, just to confirm. Very bright, genuinely interested in the subject, and modest. So I'm really looking forward to him joining. He looked like an excellent candidate and a good thing we should be doing.
Great. It's interesting, isn't it? Because at the UK Forum, we found there had been a sort of national board apprenticeship scheme. In a sense, we are developing that ourselves. But what I noticed about the national apprentices was they weren't necessarily young people. You don't have to be a young person to be an apprentice. And I think that we really did set out to try and reach out to young people who are interested and associated with what we do. And so I think Youth Voice have also had a bit of a recruitment drive, and hopefully they'll be able to come up with somebody who's interested in joining Recreation and Wellbeing Forum on the same terms. Really exciting, really exciting. I'll just leave it at that, and in a year's time, let's see what's happened. So I take it that is it proposed by George or seconded by Patrick? How's that? All in favour? I think that's unanimous. Brilliant. Thank you, members. So those are the recommendations. That we note the dates, that we deal with interest in the UK conference, and that we invite Luke Ives to be co-opted to the forum for 12 months, see how it goes. On to 17th Parish Forums update. I think that really is for information. It's update from the forums there. Happy with that. So then I think we then move into private business. Agreement to move into private session to consider items 20 and 21.